Princess Lyra stood on the highest balcony of the crystal spire, watching the stars above her homeworld. Two dragons rested beside her like cats seeking warmth. The smaller one, named Ember, had scales that glowed orange and red like burning coals. The larger one, called Frost, had ice blue scales that sparkled even in darkness. Both dragons were no bigger than large dogs, but they were fierce and loyal. Lyra had raised them since they hatched from eggs given to her on her 200th birthday. In elf years, she was still young, barely an adult by her people's standards. She had long silver hair that reached her waist and eyes that changed color with her moods. Right now, they were deep purple, showing her excitement. Tomorrow, she would leave her homeworld for the first time. The Elven Council had chosen her for an important mission. She would travel to a new colony world where elves and humans were building a shared settlement. The alliance between their species was only 5 years old and still fragile. Young elves like Lyra were being sent to learn about humans and report back to the council. Lyra was not happy about this assignment. She had heard stories about humans and none of them impressed her. Humans were short-lived creatures who barely reached 100 years old. They had no natural magic, no enhanced strength or speed. They could not see in the dark or hear a whisper from across a valley. They were weak and primitive in her opinion. Her teacher, Elder Theron, had tried to explain why humans mattered. He told her that humans had something elves lacked. They called it determination or stubbornness. Humans refused to accept limitations. When they could not fly, they built machines to carry them through the skies. When they could not breathe underwater, they created suits that let them explore the oceans. When they found themselves alone in a hostile galaxy, they built weapons and ships that made even the ancient races take notice. Lyra had listened politely, but inside she remained unconvinced. Building tools was not the same as true power. Any species could use technology. What mattered was natural ability, and in that area humans were at the bottom. She reached down and scratched Ember behind the horns. The little dragon purred and breathed a small flame that warmed her hand. Frost nuzzled her other hand, leaving a trail of cold mist on her skin. These dragons were proof of elven superiority. Only elves could bond with dragons. Only elves had the magic necessary to communicate with them mind to mind. The next morning, Lyra packed her belongings in a small bag. Elves traveled light. She wore her ceremonial armor, a beautiful set of silver plates that had been crafted by master smiths and enchanted by the high mages. The armor was light as silk, but stronger than any metal humans could forge. It would protect her from blasters, energy weapons, and even some magic attacks. She said goodbye to her parents, who wished her well on her journey. Her mother gave her a pendant with a glowing crystal inside. It would let her contact home in case of emergency. Her father gave her a blade forged from star metal. It was tradition for elf warriors to carry such weapons even in times of peace. The transport ship was waiting at the spaceport. It was an elven vessel, sleek and elegant, with curves that seemed to flow like water. Inside, the walls glowed with soft light and the air smelled of flowers from the royal gardens. Everything about it spoke of elven grace and artistry. Lyra settled into her cabin with Ember and Frost. The journey would take 3 days, even at faster than light speed. The colony world, called New Haven, was on the edge of explored space, far from both elven and human homeworlds. It had been chosen specifically because it was neutral ground where neither species had prior claim. During the journey, Lyra studied reports about New Haven. The settlement had 5,000 humans and 2,000 elves. They were building a research station to study the planet's unique ecosystem. New Haven had forests with trees that grew 200 meters tall and oceans filled with creatures that glowed in the dark. There were also ruins from an ancient civilization that had died out millions of years ago. The reports included information about the human leaders at the settlement. There was a chief engineer named Cole Harper, who was responsible for all construction and maintenance. There was a head scientist named Dr. Lisa Chen, who led the research teams. There was also a military commander named Captain Frank Stone, who oversaw security. Lyra memorized their names and faces but felt no interest in meeting them. She would do her duty, observe the humans, and write reports for the council, but she did not expect to learn anything valuable. How could she learn from creatures who lived such short lives and had so little natural ability? On the 3rd day, the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel and approached New Haven. Lyra stood at the viewing window watching the planet grow larger. It was beautiful, with blue oceans, green continents, and white clouds swirling across the surface. She could see the settlement from orbit, a cluster of buildings near the coast, connected by roads and surrounded by farmland. The ship landed at the spaceport, a flat area cleared from the forest. Lyra gathered her belongings and called Ember and Frost to her shoulders. The dragons wrapped around her neck like a living scarf. She took a deep breath and walked down the ramp. A group of humans waited to greet her. They wore simple uniforms and looked nervous. Lyra understood why. She was tall even for an elf, standing almost 2 meters in height. Her armor gleamed in the sunlight, and her dragons made her look even more impressive. Humans were smaller, averaging about 1.7 meters, and they had no natural defenses. A woman stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Welcome, Princess Lyra. I am Dr. Lisa Chen. We are honored by your presence." Lyra nodded gracefully. "Thank you for your welcome. I look forward to learning about your work here." But inside, she was already making judgments. The humans looked weak and plain. Their buildings were functional but lacked beauty. Their technology was loud and crude compared to elven designs. She could not imagine spending a year in this place learning from these people. She did not know then how wrong she was. She did not know that her opinions would be challenged in ways she never expected. And she did not know that a simple human engineer would teach her the most important lesson of her long life. Dr. Lisa Chen led Lyra through the settlement, showing her the different areas and explaining their purposes. The main complex had living quarters, laboratories, storage facilities, and a medical center. Outside the walls, there were farms where humans grew food and greenhouses where they experimented with local plants. Lyra walked beside the human scientist with Ember and Frost still perched on her shoulders. She listened politely but found most of the information boring. The settlement seemed so basic, so temporary. Elven colonies were built to last thousands of years with towers that touched the clouds and gardens that bloomed eternally. This human outpost looked like it might blow away in a strong wind. They passed a group of human workers repairing a damaged section of the outer wall. One of them was a man with dark hair and sun-darkened skin. He wore simple work clothes and was covered in dust and sweat. He was using a welding tool to seal metal plates together. The work looked hard and the man moved slowly as if tired. "That is Cole Harper, our chief engineer," Dr. Chen said. "He keeps everything running. Without him, this settlement would fall apart in a week." Lyra glanced at the man with little interest. He looked ordinary even by human standards. Not particularly tall or strong. Nothing about him suggested he was important or skilled. She watched him struggle to lift a heavy plate into position and felt a mixture of pity and contempt. On her world, such work would be done with magic or by machines controlled by thought. The elves had mastered anti-gravity technology centuries ago. Heavy lifting was something only the lowest workers did, and even they had tools that made it easy. Watching this human sweat and strain seemed almost embarrassing. "Is he considered strong among your people?" Lyra asked, trying to keep the mockery from her voice. Dr. Chen smiled. "Cole is stronger than he looks. But more importantly, he is smart and dedicated. He has worked 18-hour days for the past month to repair damage from the storm season." Lyra nodded, but privately thought that any elf could work for days without rest. 18 hours seemed like nothing. She wondered how humans accomplished anything when they were so limited by their weak bodies. The tour continued. Dr. Chen showed her the research laboratories where scientists studied samples from the forest and ocean. They had discovered hundreds of new species, including plants that produced natural medicines and crystals that stored energy more efficiently than anything humans or elves had created before. This part interested Lyra more. She enjoyed learning about new life forms, and the planet did seem to have unusual biodiversity. She asked intelligent questions, and Dr. Chen seemed pleased by her engagement. Then they reached the communication center where all the long-range transmitters were located. This was how the settlement stayed in contact with both human and elven space. The equipment looked complicated, with screens showing data and technicians monitoring various systems. "We have been having problems with the main array," Dr. Chen explained. "Something is interfering with our signals. Cole has been trying to fix it, but he says we need new parts that will not arrive for another month." As if summoned by his name, Cole entered the communication center. He was still covered in dust, and he carried a toolbox that looked heavy. He nodded to Dr. Chen and glanced at Lyra with curiosity but no particular awe. "Princess," he said simply. "Welcome to New Haven." Lyra was surprised by his casual greeting. Most people showed more deference when meeting elven royalty. She decided he was either brave or foolish. Probably foolish given how primitive humans were. "I understand you are having technical difficulties," Lyra said. "On my world, such problems would be solved in minutes with proper magic." Cole raised an eyebrow. "Magic does not work on quantum communication arrays. Different type of problem." Lyra felt her cheeks flush. She knew that, of course, but his matter-of-fact tone made her feel like she had said something stupid. She covered her embarrassment with arrogance. "Perhaps if your technology was more advanced you would not have these constant failures. Elven systems rarely break down." Cole shrugged. "Elven systems are also 3 times as expensive and require rare materials we cannot get out here. Our equipment might be simple, but we can repair it with what we have on hand." He turned to Dr. Chen. "I need to check the array on the tower. It will take a few hours. Be careful," Dr. Chen said. "The wind is picking up." Cole nodded and left without another word. Lyra watched him go, feeling irritated. The human had not been rude exactly, but he had not shown her the respect she deserved. She was a princess and he was just a worker. The difference in their status was enormous. Dr. Chen seemed to sense Lyra's mood. "Do not take it personally. Cole treats everyone the same. He is one of our best people. He saved 30 lives during the last storm when the shelters flooded." Lyra made a non-committal sound. She did not want to hear more praise for this ordinary human. She changed the subject, asking about the ancient ruins that had been discovered in the southern continent. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up. "Oh, those are fascinating. The civilization that built them was incredibly advanced. We think they might have been energy beings who took physical form. Would you like to see the artifacts we have recovered?" "Yes," Lyra said. "That sounds much more interesting than damaged equipment." They spent the next 2 hours in the archaeology lab examining strange objects made from materials that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. Lyra found herself genuinely engaged. This was the kind of mystery that appealed to her. Ancient secrets lost knowledge powers beyond current understanding. As evening approached, Dr. Chen offered to show Lyra to her quarters. They walked through the settlement as the sun began to set. The sky turned orange and purple and the temperature dropped quickly. Lyra noticed that many humans were heading inside and lights were coming on in the buildings. "We keep early hours here," Dr. Chen explained. "The days are only 20 hours long on this planet, and we try to match our schedule to the natural cycle." They reached a building near the center of the settlement. Inside was a suite that had been prepared for Lyra. It was simple but clean with a bed, desk, and bathroom. There was also a perch where Ember and Frost could rest. "I hope this is acceptable," Dr. Chen said. "We tried to make it comfortable. It is adequate," Lyra replied. She did not want to admit that the room was actually nice by human standards. The bed looked soft, and there was even a window with a view of the forest. "Dinner is served in the common hall at sunset," Dr. Chen said. "You are welcome to join us, or we can bring food to your room if you prefer." "I will come to the hall," Lyra decided. It would be good to observe more humans in their natural behavior. After Dr. Chen left, Lyra removed her armor and sat on the bed. Ember and Frost curled up beside her, purring softly. She felt tired from the journey and from maintaining her dignified bearing all day. Outside, she could see Cole climbing a tall tower where the communication array was mounted. He moved carefully, checking his safety harness at each level. The tower swayed slightly in the wind, and Lyra realized the climb was actually dangerous. One mistake and he would fall to his death. She watched him work, wondering why he would risk himself for such a simple task. Surely there were others who could do this, but no one else climbed to help him. He was alone up there in the fading light doing difficult work, while everyone else relaxed indoors. For the first time, Lyra felt a small flicker of something that might have been respect. Just a tiny spark quickly dismissed, but it was there. The next morning, Lyra woke early from habit, even though she had nowhere important to be. Ember and Frost were already awake, playing with each other on the floor. The small dragons wrestled gently, breathing tiny flames and frost, clouds that dissipated harmlessly in the air. Lyra dressed in simpler clothes than her armor, choosing a tunic and pants that were more practical for walking around the settlement. She kept her blade at her side, though. An elf warrior never went completely unarmed. She found the common hall easily enough. It was a large building with tables and chairs where humans gathered to eat and socialize. Breakfast was being served from a counter and people were helping themselves to food. Lyra joined the line, feeling out of place. Everyone else was human and they all seemed to know each other. They talked and laughed while they filled their plates. A few glanced at her with curiosity, but no one approached. She wondered if they were afraid of her or simply giving her space. She took food that looked safe. Some kind of grain porridge, fruit, and bread. She found an empty table near a window and sat down. Ember and Frost settled under her chair, waiting patiently. She had fed them earlier with meat she brought from the ship. As she ate, Lyra observed the humans around her. They were diverse in appearance, with different skin colors, hair types, and body shapes. This was something elves lacked. All elves looked similar, with pale skin, pointed ears, and slim builds. Humans had more variety, which she supposed was interesting, even if it did not make them more capable. She noticed Cole sitting at a table with other workers. He was eating quickly while reviewing something on a datapad. Even during meals, he seemed to be working. The others at his table were talking, but he only half listened, responding occasionally without looking up from his screen. A young woman approached Lyra's table nervously. "Excuse me, Princess. May I sit with you?" Lyra gestured to the empty chairs. Of course, the woman sat down smiling. "I am Amy Torres. I work in the botany lab. Dr. Chen said you were interested in the native plants." "Yes," Lyra said. "Your planet has remarkable biodiversity." Amy's eyes brightened and she began talking enthusiastically about her research. She explained that the forest had trees with root systems that connected underground, allowing them to share nutrients and information. It was similar to how some trees behaved on Earth, but far more sophisticated. Lyra found herself engaged in the conversation. Amy was clearly intelligent and passionate about her work. They discussed the implications of the connected forest and what it might teach them about plant consciousness. Other people began joining their table, drawn by the conversation. A geologist named Kevin started talking about the unique minerals in the planet's crust. A biologist named Rachel described the ocean creatures she was studying. Soon Lyra was surrounded by enthusiastic scientists, all eager to share their discoveries. She realized that humans might be physically weak, but their curiosity was boundless. They wanted to understand everything they encountered. They asked questions, tested theories, and shared knowledge freely. It was actually admirable in its own way. The conversation was interrupted by alarms. Red lights began flashing and a computerized voice announced an emergency. "Hull breach in Section 7. All personnel evacuate to safe zones." People stood up quickly but without panic. They moved toward the exits in orderly groups. Lyra stood as well, not sure what she was supposed to do. Cole appeared beside her. "Princess, you need to come with me to the shelter." "What is happening?" Lyra demanded. "Pressure containment failure," Cole said, "probably caused by metal fatigue. We have been meaning to replace those panels but have not had time." He started walking quickly toward the exit and Lyra followed with Ember and Frost flying beside her. Other people were moving in the same direction, all heading for reinforced buildings that could maintain air pressure, even if the main dome failed. Section 7 was where the research laboratories were located. Lyra realized that all those scientists she had just been talking to might be in danger if they had gone back to work early. "Are people trapped in there?" Lyra asked. Cole checked his datapad. "Shows 15 people still in the section. The blast doors sealed automatically when pressure dropped, but those doors will not hold long. The whole section could decompress in minutes." They reached the shelter and Cole made sure Lyra was inside before turning to leave. "Where are you going?" Lyra asked. "To get those people out." Cole said simply. "You cannot," Lyra protested. "You said yourself the section could decompress." "You will die, maybe," Cole agreed. "But I know the override codes and I know the fastest routes through the damaged areas. I have the best chance of getting them out." Lyra grabbed his arm. "This is foolish. Wait for proper rescue teams." Cole looked at her directly for the first time since they met. His eyes were calm and determined. "By the time rescue teams gear up, those people will be dead. I am already geared up." He held up an emergency breather mask. "And I am not leaving them." He pulled free from her grasp and ran toward Section 7. Lyra stood frozen for a moment, shocked by what she had witnessed. This human, who she had dismissed as weak and ordinary, was running toward certain danger to save others. He had no magic, no enhanced abilities, no special armor, just courage and determination. She made a decision. "Ember, Frost, we are going to help." The dragons chirped in agreement. They did not fully understand what was happening, but they sensed Lyra's resolve. She ran after Cole with her dragons flying overhead. She caught up to him at the entrance to Section 7. He was putting on the breather mask and checking a portable oxygen tank. "You should not be here," Cole said when he saw her. "Neither should you." Lyra replied. But we are both here now, so let us not waste time arguing. Cole studied her for a moment, then nodded. Can your dragons handle low oxygen environments? They can hold their breath for 30 minutes, Lyra said. And they can sense heat signatures, which will help us find people in smoke or darkness. Cole considered this. All right, stay close and follow my lead. The structure is unstable, so watch for falling debris. They entered Section 7 together, moving through corridors filled with smoke and flashing emergency lights. The air was thin and getting thinner. Lyra could feel the pressure difference in her ears. Ember and Frost flew ahead, using their heat-sensing abilities to search for life signs. They found the first group of people quickly, 3 researchers trapped behind a collapsed doorway. Cole used his tools to cut through the debris while Lyra helped move the pieces aside. Her elven strength was useful here, lifting chunks of metal that Cole could not handle alone. They freed the researchers and sent them running toward the exit with breather masks. Deeper into the section, the damage was worse. Panels had torn away, exposing the structure to outside atmosphere. The planet air was breathable, but the rapid pressure change was dangerous. People could get injured from the decompression itself. Frost detected more heat signatures in the main laboratory. Cole and Lyra rushed there, finding 12 people huddled together. Some were injured, bleeding from cuts caused by flying debris. One man was unconscious. Cole immediately began organizing the evacuation. He gave breather masks to those who needed them most and created a chain where stronger people helped injured ones. Lyra used her medical knowledge to stabilize the unconscious man and fashion a stretcher from broken furniture. The building groaned around them. Metal creaked and more panels tore away. The whole section was coming apart. "We need to move now," Cole shouted over the sound of tearing metal. "This place is coming down." They started moving toward the exit with the rescued people between them. Lyra helped carry the unconscious man on the makeshift stretcher, while Cole led the way, choosing paths that were still structurally sound. Halfway back, a massive panel broke free from the ceiling. Cole saw it falling and pushed 2 people out of the way, but the panel caught his leg, pinning him to the floor. Lyra heard him grunt in pain, but he did not scream. She handed off the stretcher to others and rushed back to him. The panel was large and heavy even by her standards. She braced herself and lifted with all her elven strength. The panel rose slowly. Cole pulled himself free, dragging his injured leg. Blood soaked through his pants, but he still managed to stand, using the wall for support. "Go," Cole ordered the others. "Get to the shelter. We are right behind you." The rescued people ran, stumbling and helping each other through the smoke. Lyra supported Cole, putting his arm over her shoulders. Ember and Frost circled overhead, keeping watch for more dangers. They moved as fast as Cole's injury allowed. The building continued to fall apart around them. Walls cracked and more ceiling panels broke loose. The air was getting thinner, making it hard to breathe even for Lyra with her enhanced lung capacity. They reached a junction where the corridor split in 2 directions. Cole checked his datapad, but the screen was cracked and flickering. "Which way?" Lyra asked. Cole closed his eyes, trying to remember the layout. "Left should take us to the main exit. Right goes to secondary maintenance tunnels." Suddenly, Ember hissed a warning. The dragon sensed something wrong with the left passage. Lyra trusted her dragon's instincts absolutely. "We go right," Lyra decided, "but that adds 10 minutes to our route," Cole protested. "I'm not sure we have 10 minutes, trust me," Lyra said firmly. "My dragon senses danger that way." Cole nodded despite his doubt. "All right, right it is." They turned into the maintenance tunnels. These passages were narrower and darker, with exposed pipes and cables running along the walls. The floor was uneven, forcing them to move carefully. Behind them, there was a massive crash. The left corridor where they would have gone collapsed completely. Tons of metal and concrete fell, filling the passage. If they had gone that way, they would be dead. Cole looked at Ember with new respect. Good instincts. The maintenance tunnels led them deeper into the complex before curving back toward the outer sections. It was slower going, and Cole was weakening from blood loss. Lyra could feel him leaning more heavily on her with each step. She considered calling for help using her emergency communicator, but the interference from the failing systems would probably block any signal. They had to keep moving and trust they would reach safety. Frost flew ahead, scouting the path. The dragon returned and chirped urgently at Lyra. She understood the message immediately. There was a gap in the floor ahead where the structure had torn away. They would have to jump across. How far? Lyra asked. Frost indicated with wing gestures. About 3 meters. Lyra could easily jump that distance, but Cole with his injured leg would struggle. She made a quick decision. I am going to carry you, Lyra told Cole. What? Cole looked startled. You cannot jump with that leg. I can carry you across, I am too heavy. Cole protested. You will fall. Lyra felt a flash of irritation. Do not insult me. I am stronger than I look. Now stop arguing and hold on. Before he could protest further, she lifted him into a carrying position. He was heavy for an elf to carry, but not impossibly so. She took a running start and leaped across the gap. For a moment they were airborne with nothing but darkness below. Then her feet hit solid ground on the other side. She set Cole down gently. See, I told you. Cole was speechless. He had assumed elves were delicate despite their reputation. Lyra could see him recalculating his assumptions about her abilities. They continued through the tunnels, finally reaching an exit that led outside the main complex. Fresh air hit them like a wave. Lyra gulped it gratefully, and even Cole breathed easier despite his breather mask. Rescue teams were waiting outside. Medical personnel rushed forward to help Cole. He tried to wave them off, insisting. Others needed help more, but they ignored him and began treating his leg. Dr. Chen appeared looking worried and relieved at the same time. Thank God you are both safe. Everyone made it out because of you two. Lyra looked back at the damaged section. Smoke poured from broken panels and the structure was clearly unstable. Teams were already moving to seal it off and begin repairs. Your engineer is brave, Lyra said to Dr. Chen. Foolishly brave perhaps, but brave nonetheless, that is Cole. Dr. Chen agreed with a tired smile. He never thinks about the danger, only about getting the job done and protecting people. Over the next few hours, the full extent of the disaster became clear. The pressure breach had been caused by a combination of factors. Poor quality materials, design flaws, and inadequate maintenance. It was a miracle no one had died. Cole was taken to the medical center where doctors worked on his leg. The injury was serious, requiring surgery, but they said he would recover fully. Lyra visited him that evening, finding him awake and alert despite the medication. You saved my life today, Cole said when he saw her. Thank you, Lyra shook her head. You saved 15 lives. I only helped. You were the one who refused to abandon them. Cole smiled slightly. Someone once told me that we are only as strong as our willingness to stand up for others. I try to live by that. Lyra sat in the chair beside his bed. I judged you poorly when we first met. I thought humans were weak because you lack our natural abilities. But I was wrong. Strength comes in many forms. We are different species. Cole said, we have different advantages. The key is working together, using our strengths to cover each other's weaknesses. Lyra nodded slowly. She was beginning to understand why the Elven Council wanted young elves to spend time with humans. It was not about learning technology or tactics. It was about learning a different perspective on what mattered. Ember and Frost had been resting under her chair. Now they hopped up onto the bed, approaching Cole cautiously. He held still, not sure what they wanted. Ember sniffed his hand, then licked it gently. Frost chirped and rubbed against his arm. I think they like you, Lyra said, surprised. They do not usually warm to strangers. Maybe they sense I am a friend, Cole suggested. Yes, Lyra agreed. I believe you are. Outside the window, the sun was setting over New Haven. The damaged section still smoked, but repair crews were already at work. Life in the settlement continued despite the crisis. People adapted and moved forward. Lyra realized she had much to learn from these humans. Their determination, their courage, their refusal to give up even when facing impossible odds. These were qualities worth studying, worth respecting. She had come to this world believing she would teach humans about elven superiority. Instead, she was learning about human strength. It was humbling but also exciting. For the first time in her long life, she felt truly challenged, truly engaged with something new. The weeks following the disaster changed everything for Lyra. She stopped observing from a distance and started participating in the daily life of the settlement. She worked alongside scientists in the laboratories studying the planet's unique ecosystem. She helped repair crews rebuild Section 7 using her strength to move heavy materials. She even learned to cook human food, though her first attempts were barely edible. Cole recovered from his injury faster than the doctors expected. Within 2 weeks he was back to work, though he limped slightly and had to wear a support brace on his leg. He never complained and he never slowed down. If anything, he worked harder, making up for lost time. Lyra found herself spending more time with him. At first she told herself it was to learn about human engineering. Cole was patient in explaining how their systems worked and why they made certain design choices. But gradually she realized she enjoyed his company for other reasons. He was honest and straightforward, never trying to impress her or treat her differently, because she was royalty. One evening they were working together on the new communication array that had finally been installed. Cole was calibrating the equipment while Lyra held tools and components for him. Amber and Frost dozed nearby, full from an earlier meal. "Tell me about Earth," Lyra said. "I have read reports, but I want to know what it is really like." Cole paused in his work, considering the question. Earth is crowded. Over 12 billion people now. Every continent is covered with cities. But there are still wild places if you know where to look. Mountains where you can see for hundreds of kilometers. Oceans so deep we still have not explored them fully. Do you miss it? Lyra asked. Sometimes, Cole admitted. I miss my family. My younger sister is studying to be a doctor. I miss seeing her grow up, but I chose to come here because I wanted to be part of something bigger, building a new world where humans and other species can live together peacefully. Lyra understood that desire. She had felt it too, though she had not recognized it at first. The Elven Council had seen potential in her that she had not seen in herself. They had sent her here not to observe but to grow. What about your world? Cole asked. What is it like? Beautiful, Lyra said softly. We have cities that float in the sky held up by ancient magic, gardens where flowers bloom all year and sing in the wind, libraries containing knowledge gathered over 10,000 years. But it is also unchanging. Everything is perfect, and because of that, nothing ever grows or evolves. Cole nodded, understanding. That is why you needed to leave. To see something different, yes, Lyra agreed. Though I did not understand that until I came here. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. The communication array came online, successfully connecting New Haven to the wider network. Messages began coming through from both human and elven space. News updates, supply schedules, personal communications from home. Lyra checked her messages and found one from Elder Theron. He was pleased with her reports and wanted to know more about human methods of problem solving. The Council was considering new joint projects with humanity, and her observations were proving valuable. She realized with some surprise that she had stopped writing reports about human weaknesses. Instead, her recent messages focused on human strengths. Their creativity, their persistence, their ability to find solutions with limited resources. She was becoming an advocate for humanity rather than a critic. The next morning, Lyra was invited to join an expedition into the forest. A team of scientists wanted to study the connected root system more closely, and they needed someone strong to help carry equipment through difficult terrain. Lyra agreed immediately, bringing Ember and Frost along. Cole came too, despite his injured leg. He said he wanted to collect samples of the local soil for analysis. Lyra suspected he really just wanted to get out of the settlement for a day. The forest was magnificent. Trees rose hundreds of meters into the air, their trunks wider than houses. The canopy blocked most of the sunlight, creating a twilight atmosphere at ground level. Strange plants glowed with bioluminescence, providing enough light to see by. Ember and Frost loved it. They flew through the trees, playing tag and hunting small creatures. Lyra watched them with a smile. Her dragons had adapted well to this world, just as she was adapting. The team set up equipment at a site where several massive trees grew close together. They used sensors to map the root connections underground. The data showed an incredibly complex network with roots interweaving and sharing resources across kilometers of forest. One scientist named Helen proposed a theory. What if the trees are not just sharing nutrients but also information? What if this whole forest is essentially one giant organism? Cole examined the data carefully. The electrical patterns do resemble neural networks, but the signals are too slow. It would take days for information to travel from one side of the forest to the other, unless time means something different to them. Lyra suggested, trees live for thousands of years. What seems slow to us might be normal speed for them. The team discussed this idea with growing excitement. If Lyra was right, it would revolutionize understanding of plant consciousness. More research was needed, but it was a fascinating possibility. They spent hours in the forest taking samples and recording data. When they finally packed up to return, the sun was setting. The bioluminescent plants grew brighter, making the forest look magical. On the walk back, Cole fell into step beside Lyra. "This is why I love this work," he said quietly. "Every day we discover something new. Every day we push the boundaries of what we thought was possible." Lyra nodded. "I feel the same way. I came here thinking I had nothing to learn. Now I realize I was ignorant. There is so much more to the universe than I understood." They reached the settlement as darkness fell. Lights glowed in the windows and people moved between buildings finishing their evening tasks. It looked warm and welcoming. Lyra realized she had started thinking of this place as home. Over the following months, the partnership between Lyra and Cole deepened. They worked on projects together, combining elven magic with human engineering to create new solutions. They developed a hybrid power system that was more efficient than either technology alone. They designed better life support systems that required less maintenance. Other elves and humans began collaborating more closely, inspired by their example. The settlement became more integrated with mixed teams working in every department. Cultural barriers broke down as people focused on shared goals rather than differences. Lyra sent regular reports to the Elven Council describing these developments. She argued passionately for deeper cooperation between their species. Humans had qualities that elves lacked and vice versa. Together they could achieve things neither could accomplish alone. 1 year after her arrival, Lyra received an unexpected message. The council wanted her to return home to report in person. They were considering a major expansion of the alliance and needed her insights. She felt torn. Part of her wanted to see her homeworld again, to reunite with her family and walk in the Crystal Gardens. But another part did not want to leave New Haven. She had built a life here. She had friends and important work. She had Cole. The night before her scheduled departure, she found Cole at the communication tower. He was doing routine maintenance, a task he could have delegated but preferred to do himself. "I do not want to leave," Lyra admitted. "I am afraid if I go back I will not be allowed to return." Cole climbed down from the tower and faced her. "Then tell them that. Tell the council that your work here is not finished. Tell them that building this alliance requires people who believe in it." "What if they say no?" Lyra asked. "Then you make a choice," Cole said. "Stay here and continue what you started, or go back and try to change minds from the inside. Either way, you will be fighting for something you believe in." Lyra smiled. "When did you become so wise?" "I learned from an elven princess who taught me that different perspectives make us stronger." They stood together looking up at the stars. Somewhere up there was Lyra's homeworld and Cole's Earth. Two very different places, but connected, now by people willing to build bridges instead of walls. The next day, Lyra boarded the transport ship with Ember and Frost. As New Haven grew smaller below her, she made a promise to herself. She would convince the council to expand the alliance. She would return to this settlement and to the work she had started. And she would continue learning from the humans who had taught her that true strength came not from natural abilities but from courage, determination, and the willingness to stand up for what mattered. The story of an elf princess and her dragons had become something more. It had become the story of two species learning to understand each other. And that story was just beginning.